Welcome to the Real Estate Explainer podcast. I'm your host, Brian Kazula. And on today's episode, we have Michael and Andrew with the Legacy Wealth Code. Hey, Andrew, Michael, just wanted to say thank you for joining me on the podcast today. What I wanted to go over is the Legacy Wealth Code that you've created. And it looks like there's three main areas. It's the firm foundation, the tax strategies, and then building a team with your process. And I just wanted to kind of jump in and have you cover the Legacy Wealth Code.
Yeah, thanks for
having us, Andrew. My partner here in crime is with us. So for us, when we created this, Andrew and I have been real estate investors for the better part of the last 10 years and kind of dove in pretty deep through a variety of masterminds and just, industry knowledge about the tax side, which I think a lot of people, when you're starting out in real estate investing, there's not many people who think real estate's a bad investment.
No,
but
they don't.
Most people don't realize that they are missing out on a ton of tax incentives and strategies that are also associated with it. And so, we're super excited that you invited us to be here today. I know Andrew can attest to some of these. Even the office we're sitting in is a perfect example of what can be possible with the tax strategies that we teach.
Perfect. Let's go ahead and start with the foundations. It's, the foundations. And I think one of the items that you discussed is analyzing the deals, really getting a solid deal in place.
Yeah, and so the way that we structure our course is, as you said, it's one of the things that we found is that you can take advantage of these tax incentives that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But if you're not buying the right properties and you're not buying them well, you're shooting yourself in the foot out of the gate. And so it to us, it was, especially people that are new to real estate investing and maybe don't have the experience or they don't have, the years of doing it, understanding the fundamentals of, let's underwrite a deal and let's sit down and go through, what is a what's a good look on this property. And Mike and I, a little bit less lately just because deal flow has been slower with the market, but we used to underwrite, hundreds of deals a month, if not more than that. And just vetting those to look for properties that make sense. And so what we did is we kind of compiled, what are sort of the top 10 things that we look for? And when we go through a deal, what are we looking at? And so, but at the end of the day, making sure that you're sound in your fundamentals as far as knowing that you're acquiring the right asset and you're not overpaying for it or you're not buying something that's going to be a problem for you down the road. That's really step one. And so when we were laying out the course, we talked about how important it is to not overlook that part and make sure that is something that people are implementing in their strategy.
So in the deals that you're talking about, are these primarily residential or are these commercial in nature?
I would say it's more residential in the sense of like, we're not looking at true commercial or industrial properties. Typically, we're looking at a lot of multifamily deals, for example. That's a lot of where we buy ourselves. But most of the people that we're teaching to, and most people in the course tend to be more on the residential side than on the commercial. And so a lot of our underwriting and a lot of our tactics are geared and aimed towards that side of things.
All right. And you're saying analyzing deals. So are these deals coming to you or are you going out and looking for them? Are you looking on the MLS or do you have wholesalers or other individuals bringing these deals to you so then you could review to make sure they make sense before you acquire them?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously both Andrew and I, being that we are, saturated in the real estate market, from a local perspective, we're going to always get off-market deals. But, what we try to teach is that there's a variety of different places that you can find the deals.
Right.
You can always find the deal through a local real estate agent. The caveat to that is I would definitely make sure that they have some experience in the investment space, because there's a big difference when you're underwriting these for a primary residence versus an investment property, right? Like there's properties that we go into and we're like, we would never live here, but this is an amazing investment, And so I think separating those two from just like what is the cash flow, what is the return, what is the upside. But yeah, I mean, so overall, I think there's a mixed bag between just your local MLS. There's a variety of different investment groups pretty much across the country that you could be a part of, where there are off-market opportunities, partnering with local wholesalers. There's a ton of different ways to find these deals, and I think a lot of people just don't know, really where to start.
And I think what you just said was, with underwriting these deals, it's so important because there's so many folks that when they're looking at buying investment properties, everything's a deal. All of a sudden they want to buy everything. And I think what is so important about really stepping back and looking at each individual property you buy as its own business is then you're looking at your return on your investment, your long-term hold on it, what you're going to do with that property. So it is so important not to get caught up in the buy, or have to do it now because the market's moving so fast. Because I'm sure you've seen it. One or two deals can really change a person's life financially, either for the positive or the negative. So it's really important to analyze and to underwrite each individual transaction that you acquire and look at it from a holistic point of view. So I think that's a great point of view.
Well, and you hit it on the head, because I think the issue that we have right now is that you have a lot of people that watch HGTV and they watch these flipping houses and, fix or flip, blah, blah, blah. And what they don't realize is most of those shows obviously are pretty scripted. It's not, the big reveal of these three houses. Well, little do they know, like two of those houses aren't even on the market. One of them is, the fix and flip shows where we bought this for $250,000 and we put in $80,000 in reno and we sold it for $700. And then at the end, you'll see the credits scroll and you'll see the cabinets, the window company, the flooring company, all of those get some kind of, credit for what they've done for the show. Well, that's like $150,000 worth of product that they got for free because it's featured on the show. And so I think that it gives people like almost like a false narrative of, oh, I can do this. This guy, all he did is look on the MLS and he bought this property for $200,000. He called a couple guys in. Now he sold it for $700,000. I can do that. And exactly what you just said, people either get a positive or a negative experience. And I think a lot of it boils down to you don't know the fundamentals of what you're buying and how to analyze it. Then all of the stuff that we could teach you on the back end to maximize it is really all for naught, because you're already underwater on the purchase.
Something I think that is really important to add to that. And Brian, I love that comment about, one or two bad purchases can really upend somebody. And unfortunately we see some of that, and you see people go in and they overbuy on something and they can't exit it. And it's a huge issue for them. And one of the things that we preach consistently is the fundamentals. Stick to your fundamentals. Don't get swayed. Don't get emotional. Know your numbers and stick to it. Because, Mike and I are dealing with a property right now that, I kid around with him all the time. I'm like, I hate this property. I just want to get rid of it. It drives me crazy. But it's not one that we're going to hit a grand slam on. But we're not going to lose money on it either. It's pain in the neck, and like we'll exit it and we'll do okay. We're not going to do as well as we do on other properties. But as long as you're sticking to those fundamentals and you're still buying it right, like where you're going to hurt yourself is you're going to say this was a pain in the neck and I won't do something like this one again. But at least you're not, declaring bankruptcy or defaulting on a loan that you have on the property. You're doing something that's going to actually have a longer term impact for you. And so, I think it's so important that. And we beat that home. Stick to your fundamentals, stick to your numbers, and make sure that you're not compromising on those.
And with that said, I mean, I've talked to quite a few real estate investors. When you're doing these, I imagine are you flipping them, fix and flips, or are these long-term holds, or what's your end goal?
It's all of the above. I mean, we've had we wholesale deals, we fix and flip deals, and we do long-term holds. So it's not any one box per se, and we kind of go with where we're at with the market, honestly. And so like right now we're not wholesaling a lot of properties. We've scaled that down. We've scaled down our fix and flip, and we're more focused on long-term holds at the moment. But if the opportunities are right, we'll dive right back into those things. So.
And when you're doing a fix and flip, let's say, do you recommend that a client or an investor goes outside of their market, tries to do a fix and flip long distance, or should they really stay within their local area? So if they've got to step in and, just help out, they're available. I've seen clients do both.
Yeah. I mean, and Mike, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this too. I mean, I would say a lot of it depends on how seasoned you are, honestly, and kind of
right.
your appetite for headaches with it. I mean, certainly being local, I think, makes it easier most of the time. That said, I mean, we look at portfolios all over the place, knowing that if you bring in the right support and you have the right people, you can still make it happen. You just, you're going to have to potentially hop on a plane once in a while, or you're going to have to drive there. I'm actually, interestingly enough, we just went under contract on some properties I own in South Carolina. And the reason for the exit is because small town South Carolina, I have a business partner in that deal who lives there, and he just wants out. And he's like, I'm tired of dealing with the headaches down the street, and we don't have a good management option on it. So it's like, okay, if you're out, then the project isn't going to work for us and we got to sell. So, I think there's times where you'd say it just doesn't work. And there's times where you'd say, if we can find the right people to help support it, yes, it can still work.
That makes sense. And I think that's part of the, last bit of this conversation is building the correct team. So it's really understanding your core competencies and having the teams in place. So that's good to know. So in this case, you had a friend that was part of the deal, decided he no longer wanted to be part of the deal. So it's a good time to exit. That completely makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. We give him we kid around with him because so he's licensed. And when we bought the deal, he took a commission on it, which we all were like, oh man, we can't believe you're not just crediting that back. So we're like, you deal with the headaches locally. And I think he's been keeping track on his tabs, and he's like, my tab's up now. Now I got to exit. So
I'd like to thank our sponsor, U.S. Tax Advisors Group, a cost segregation company. If you're interested in learning more about cost segregation studies, go to realestateexplainer.com and click the cost segregation link at the top of the page. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, it's one of those things that, you really also have to look at what you're doing. I mean, is it, is it worth it? Meaning, you own these rental properties, you're paying down the mortgage, that's great. But at the end of the day, if you're spending your weekends mowing the yard and you're over there 40 hours a week, or maybe not 40, but whatever it is, and it's a second full-time job for you, maybe that specific investment isn't the right fit. So that's something that I think every investor really needs to look at. And I've seen guys get burnt out of owning rental properties specifically for that reason, is because they're doing all the work. And what I've said to them, and I'll say, is that if the business doesn't support itself, meaning you can't hire somebody to mow the yard, or you can't hire somebody to manage the property, your time is not free. Right. You have to value your input. And if you're not paying yourself anything, or it's a negative, then it's not penciling. It's not a good business to be in. You need to look at that business and restructure it. Maybe go in and do some value add if you can, so you can increase the rents and make it profitable. And if that just doesn't work for the market, maybe it is looking at selling that property and, identifying another asset that would be a better fit for you. So,
when I laugh sometimes because, obviously we created this course because Andrew and I both, between the two of us, have a ton of experience in investment real estate and how to buy the properties and make sure you're positioning yourself in a positive light, then applying the tax strategies. I mean, this is all stuff that most people probably don't know about. And then in the same breath, I'm also, I'm walking out of this nightmare Airbnb with 2 sacks of laundry, filled with God knows what kind of bodily fluids. And I'm thinking, I mean, I guess this is just one of those lessons where one day when I'm on stage talking, like I can say I have been in the thick of it because,
Yeah.
it's not all glitz and glamour. You're not just cashing checks. I mean, there's a garbage bag full of dirty laundry in the back of my truck right now because we try to automate a lot of it, and that's what we teach. Like this is, you can automate it, but in the same breath, sometimes that housekeeper isn't available when you thought they were going to be because they had, some kind of family emergency. You got a guest checking in at 3:00. Now you have a bag of laundry in the back of your truck. I mean,
we could do a whole episode on Airbnbs. I mean, especially here in Florida, we're all in Florida. You're up in Tampa. I'm down in Sarasota. And in the summertime and in the wintertime, if that Airbnb sits vacant for a week or so and someone put a load of wet laundry in the washing machine, it's going to be a big surprise when you show up the next time because the whole house is just going to, it's going to smell like mildew. It's just, it's just a reality, in Florida. So that could be a whole different topic. But I did want to segue over to the tax strategies because I think that is so important. And, we've worked together. I am a cost segregation specialist. That's what I do. And, it is so important when you're looking at real estate as an investment is to really take a look at all of the opportunities that real estate presents. Whether you're doing a cost segregation study or not, you're still going to have depreciation on the investment property. You cannot depreciate a primary residence, but you can depreciate an investment property. And that depreciation, even if it's straight line at 27 and a half years for residential property or 39 years for commercial property, it really does help offset taxable income. So it's just an amazing opportunity. I'm sure you guys talk about that in your courses. So
yeah, I mean, so that's really the foundation of why we put this all together. So, kind of taking a step back, our journey started with us partnering up. I was doing a lot of different masterminds at the time, and Andrew being not only just a real estate attorney, but also an investor himself, I was like, we got to partner up. We got to start buying stuff together, but we have to maximize the tax strategies. And it was amazing. I remember sitting in the room when I first learned about cost segregation, and I felt like my head was going to explode because I'm like, somewhat mad at myself. Like, how did I not know about this? But then you start thinking about, okay, I can't change the past. Whatever happened in the past is the past. But what could this do for my future? And when you start applying what those tax strategies look like, I mean, it can exponentially grow your portfolio. And that's really kind of how the Legacy Wealth Code started. It was just really Andrew and I wanting to buy properties and eventually move from, small multifamily and single family to bigger and bigger projects. How do we do that? Well, a friend of ours that was in marketing said, create a course where, you're teaching people that they're missing out on a huge incentive if they're not taking advantage of it. And that will give you all of the potential partners that you ever need. And that is now morphed into even more than what we probably imagined to begin with, which is helping any investor take advantage of the same tax strategies that the super wealthy and the super rich have taken advantage of for years, mostly because they have tax strategists and everyone else has tax preparers, right? So most people are just used to turning in their paperwork and saying, here's what I made. Here's what I think my deductions are. Tell me what I owe. And they check the boxes. And then that's pretty much the only conversation you have with your tax professional. And there's a huge gap there because, one of the guys we work with, Justin out of Arizona, he says that the tax return is his report card on how well the strategy performed for that year. And I think once you change your mindset from that I'm just filling out paperwork and I'm going to send a check in to how do I create a strategy this year so that I don't have to pay taxes, or I can at least eliminate a lot of taxes that I would owe by doing something that the government will incentivize me to do. And so I think what it boils down to is, when we do these calls with people, we tell people, if you live in the United States and work here, you're a partner with the government, just how it is. But the option you have is you can be a passive partner, let them take the money out, they do whatever they want to with it. Or you can be an active partner and do something they'll incentivize you to do. And when you look at it like that and you realize real estate provides cash flow, appreciation, and depreciation, there's not a better asset in the world to ever invest in.
Mike, you hit one of our buzzwords there, mindset. And Brian, one of the things that we consistently drive home in the course is that so much of this is a mindset shift. And I look back at, how we used to invest ourselves. And, Mike came to me, I don't know what it was, 2019-ish, and was like, you got to come to these masterminds I'm going to, because they're talking about these really great tax strategies that are, you can compound that with your investment strategy. And I think most people, when they think about investing in real estate, it's like, okay, I got to make a good buy so that I can make a good exit. And then there's my profit margin, and that's how I'm going to make my money. And, some of them think a little bit about 1031s, and they're doing some tax strategy as far as that's concerned, but nobody's really deep diving depreciation. They're not deep diving how to ultimately reduce their active income through real estate as well. And it's a halfway there thought process, I guess. And Mike and I talk a lot now in hindsight, and I'm like, I sit down and do closings with clients, and you hand them their 1099 form to fill out, and they're just kind of like, oh, it's part of the process. It's something I have to do. But yes, to a certain extent, it is something you have to do, but there's a better way to do it. And so, we spent probably the last 2 years just really deep diving on this and realizing that, investing in real estate is not just how you buy and you sell. If you're not taking advantage of the tax strategies, you're really leaving a lot on the table there. And by recognizing that and then starting to partner with the right people like yourself and the right CPAs, it is really just rocket shipped our own portfolios, our own wealth. And that's what we are trying to get out to everybody else, is that there's a better way to do this. There's a way that you can really grow your own stuff at a much faster pace than what you think.
And when you're looking at it, I was going to do a whole podcast, and I know it's probably not going to be the most exciting podcast I do, because when I get going, it tends to be boring, let's say, but it's going to be the cost basis of real estate. And I've seen this, it pops up over and over again with real estate investors across the country that I work with. They'll buy very large assets, and then they'll turn their closing statement over to their CPA to input the cost basis into their fixed asset schedules. And they'll have let's say a $5 million acquisition, and their CPA or their tax advisor will carve out 70% to a land allocation because they bought an area, and that's what the county tax recorders is saying that the land allocation is. Now, that could be true in some cases. If you're coastal San Diego, that might be the case, but probably not in the middle of nowhere in New Hampshire. So there's, all these things that you really have to look at when you're looking at the taxes, and you have to take it, it's your own responsibility to make sure that who's filling that information out for you is putting the correct numbers on your tax returns. So I think what your partner in Arizona had said is, the tax return is really the report card. And I would just encourage everybody that's investing in real estate is really pay attention to what is going into your fixed asset schedules when you're setting them up at the end of the year. And I would also just caution, please don't rush it. Don't be the guy who's filing their taxes on, the last day of the year, the last day of the extension, because you're really doing a disservice to yourself and you're putting your tax preparer in a very bad position because they've got a very complicated job because they don't only have to know about real estate. They also have to know about all the other topics, the thousands and thousands of topics that are out there when it comes to taxes. So just give them a little bit of time to get those documents together. With that, I do want to transition to building the team and having the correct partners in place. And I think we talked about it in the very beginning when it came to working with wholesalers that are bringing you transactions, to working with cost segregation professionals, to working with very good tax preparers. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Mike, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So, and I'll actually parlay that into something that you can respond to as well, Andrew, because I feel like the guy that you talked to a couple of days ago is really like the perfect avatar for who it is that we're trying to help. Really who we're trying to help are people that are like us. It's for us, we're both real estate professionals, so that's an easy check the box. Now we can offset any of our income, but you're also going to run into all of these obscurities. And I'm sure, Brian, you probably talk to people on the cost seg side all the time that are, well, you're telling me I can't offset all of my income because I'm going to, cost seg this property. And it's like, it depends on what you want to do with it. So I think part of it is just putting together the team that can inform you on all of the tax strategies that are in place. But, as Andrew pointed out, I think in the beginning that if you're not doing if you're not buying the right way on the front end, all of the tax strategies are great, but it ends up being a wash because now you might be underwater on a property, or, you might not have done your due diligence. So you think you can do an Airbnb and there's short-term rental restrictions. I mean, there's a variety of things that the average person that's not in the real estate investing space on a day-to-day basis wouldn't think to know or wouldn't think to ask about. And that's really what we tried to do with developing this course, is not only give people a foundation, but create a community that has people that share the same vision, which is, buy real estate, invest in real estate, maximize it with the tax strategy, and then ultimately leave a legacy that is meaningful to you. And that's going to be different for everyone. But that's really, to encompass what it is that we created. That's why we did it. But Andrew, talk about the guy that you just talked to a couple of days ago.
Yeah, sure. So I was, we do onboarding calls, is how we bring people into the course. And so I was doing an onboarding call and I was talking to a guy out of California, and he was loosely familiar with cost